Hi, I'm Gail and welcome back to the next video installment in my journey through ADHD, from assessment to diagnosis to medication and titration, and all of the pitfalls, highs and lows of that experience over the last 12 months. You may have seen some of my previous videos about the assessment and diagnosis process. They're on my channel for you if you haven't seen them yet. And future videos upcoming will be all about the medication, the prescription, highs and lows of dealing with the chemist, co-care with your GP, costings, and some other really key information to help you navigate this journey if you or a loved one are on it. If you've enjoyed these videos about ADHD or any of my videos about the outdoors, hiking, through hiking and the like, then please subscribe to the channel or forward this video to someone who you think might appreciate it. Today's video is all about the limbo between my diagnosis in October 2021 and the 4-month wait until I was able to speak to a mental health nurse to discuss the medication that I decided to try out. You might have heard quite a lot about ADHD lately in the press, social media. It's because more than ever, women particularly are seeking assessment and diagnosis. Women, when they reach perimenopause age, around late 30s, 40s, early 40s, it can be different for every woman. Hormones fluctuate, and that seems to bring to light lots of processing, short-term memory, emotional regulation, sound sensitivity issues that have been managed up until that point by whoever is dealing with them. I myself manage lots of different what I thought were discrete issues, a bit of OCD, sound sensitivity, scattiness, forgetfulness, time blindness, always late. I've managed them all separately and independently with structures in my life. It's only when I hit my early 40s that I began to really struggle, and my coping mechanisms were not the same. They're not working in the same way. So after lots of reading around, it became clear to me that it was very likely that I had ADHD, which was a huge surprise to me because I work extensively with neurodiverse students and had never really reflected on the fact that the reason I work so well with them and they with me was potentially because we have a lot in common. So in late 2021, after coming off the Continental Divide Trail early, you can see all of this in my previous videos, I sought assessment through Psych UK, who were great, private company, after doing lots of research and speaking to my GP about it, who agreed co-care. That's very important to do if you're going to go on a private route. Then I was, in that assessment, diagnosed. I had hoped to be diagnosed. I wanted a reason. I wanted a way to understand my brain. And I wanted to be able to point at a name for something to explain why I was finding things so difficult. When I was diagnosed at the end of that 1 hour or just over 1 hour assessment, I was hugely elated, extremely excited, and believed I would fall into a pathway that I would pay for that would eventually deliver me back into co-care with the NHS. And I believed that once I had waited for the assessment appointment, that the follow-on from that would be swift because I was then in the system and my process had begun. I was wrong. The limbo between diagnosis and medication, or speaking to a nurse about medication, was horrendously difficult to manage because I went through a rollercoaster of emotions coming to terms with the diagnosis that I did not expect. So I was diagnosed. What happened next? Well, straight away in that very same appointment, the doctor, the psychiatrist, a woman, very, very lovely, asked me if I wanted to consider medication and explore that route. I said yes. She then said that she believed a medication called Elvance would be the right one for me to try first, and that there were a number of ADHD medications that I could try if this first one was not agreeable to me and my system. It was at this point that I started to realise that the medication route for ADHD is not always simple or clear, and that it's quite a long process of figuring out what suits you and your metabolism. So I agreed to try Elvance. She said she would put me in the system to refer me to the mental health nurse for Psych UK, who would be in touch to speak to me about starting the titration process, which could take between 6 to 8 weeks to figure out the right dosage and the right medication for me. She told me to anticipate a little wait because the system was backlogged and there had been a huge surge of people interested in their services, including the fact that they are right to choose provider for the NHS also. That was fine. I didn't really know what a little weight might mean, but I was very excited and elated at that moment with the diagnosis. She also asked me whether I'd like to speak to somebody after the appointment or arrange to have a counselling session or a talking session with somebody qualified to talk to me about what it might mean, this diagnosis. And I said no, because I felt bloody frigging brilliant and that I didn't need to speak to anybody else because this was great. I had a explanation for what was going on with me. There was going to be some medication. I was going to be fine. I regret that decision. I fell into a bit of a hole in the weeks following the diagnosis, which I did not anticipate. So if you were offered the opportunity to speak to somebody after your diagnosis, I would consider that. If I had that moment back again, I would definitely have agreed to speak to somebody. She then told me she would write up an assessment document to send to me and to my GP explaining why she'd reached the diagnosis she had, including the evidence and next steps. That was possible because I had agreed co-care with my GP before I approached Psych UK privately. So we closed out our Zoom assessment meeting and off I went into the world feeling fabulous. I ran down the stairs to mum and dad and said, I've got ADHD, oh my God, I got the assessment, I've got diagnosed. And I was so happy because I felt like a legitimate person. She'd listened to me so carefully, she'd validated the things that I'd felt, and I didn't feel anymore like an assimilated dustbin of slightly broken elements. Aside from all the great successes and positives about me, we do have a dustbin of broken elements. We all do in some way or another. But they were beginning to really debilitate me. Noises were too loud. I couldn't think or concentrate on anything for any long period of time. Distracted constantly, emotionally dysregulated, rollercoaster. So many different things, I believe, were wrong with me. I couldn't quite get my head around the fact for so long that I was a person who had so many different unrelated issues. And then, with this diagnosis, it all came under the same umbrella. So I just had ADHD brain. I had a different functioning brain, which meant that all of these things were slightly more challenging for me in a neurotypical world. That was such a huge elation because I felt like I made sense. My dustbin of bits was now a whole, fully beautiful, neurodiverse brain that I just needed to learn how to manage and how to work with well. That period of elation lasted a week or so. And then it gave way to what I can only describe as a kind of existential crisis and a lot of grief, a lot of tears and a lot of grief. I think in many ways, when you're given such a profound diagnosis, once it settles in, you realise that that's not just you today, that's been you your entire life. So as you go through your past and you ruminate, which is an ADHD feature, I found myself flicking through the chapters of my life that I've lived, all the way back to school, friendships, bad decisions I may have made, emotional moments, arguments I might have had where I firmly believed I was right, choices that I made, relationships that I chose, trips I'd been on, dangerous situations I'd found myself in, and found myself questioning, would I have done those things? Would I have been in those situations? Would I have made those decisions if I had been diagnosed with ADHD earlier and if I had been medicated? I still don't know whether I'll stay on medication, but it has made my life easier in lots of ways. But pre-medication, in this limbo period, I was fully questioning my own identity. Who actually am I? What's me? What's the ADHD? What's the seeking of dopamine behaviour? And what's the Gail Muller behaviour that would be the same without the dopamine seeking? That was a really tumultuous time. I ended up in a bit of a black hole around would I have had children? I was 43 at the time, I think, and no children, had never wanted children. Love kids, never ever wanted my own. But I began to think, would I have wanted that stability, to have those children, to feel more confident about being a focused, reliable mother if I had had medication or the opportunity to try medication? Would I have chosen different life partners, less volatile, exciting, slightly dangerous, unreliable, difficult life partners that I found thrilling and gave me dopamine, but didn't really give me the opportunity for a steady, stable lifestyle? Would I have travelled less? Would I have gone on less adventures and been more stable and focused at home, and therefore maybe not have faced as many of the ups and downs, the traumas, the difficulties that I faced? This is where my brain went, and that was a difficult period because I knew that help was coming, which was going to be medication, but I didn't know when it was going to arrive. And I couldn't see anything else on the Psych UK system other than you're in the queue, you're waiting to see a mental health nurse. So I began to believe that potentially the medication was the thing that was going to really help all of these feelings and all of this angst, but I had no idea when it was going to come. And the uncertainty of that, the inability for me to get a clear fixed answer, was also distressing. So I would have been entirely happy if I'd have been told, oh, you have an appointment with the mental health nurse and that will be in February 2022. Then I would have known in my head that it would be 4 months, rather than waiting every week. Will I hear this week? Will I hear this week? So that was really challenging. And during this period too, we're going into the winter, which isn't a great time of year for me. Then I had a very difficult relationship break and then ultimately break up with my partner of a number of years, couple of years, who lived next door to me and has 3 wonderful children who I adored. That breakup over the Christmas period and into January and February, combined with this post-diagnosis, living with ADHD in lockdown, feeling slightly like the ADHD was responsible for some of the difficulties in the relationship, but also the fact that they were in such close proximity, but our situation had changed. Even though it was for the best that we were broken up, it was a very difficult time to manage complex feelings, especially with rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is another element of ADHD, where you feel failure and rejection really deeply, even if you've not been rejected. Like, I knew consciously, logically, that it was the right thing and it was the best thing, but emotionally my system couldn't make peace with that, and it was ruminating all the things I could have done differently rather than looking at the facts of the situation more clinically. So I had no infrastructure for looking after myself in that time, because I'd already got to a fairly difficult stage in order to seek an assessment. I was not firing on all cylinders and feeling great. Otherwise, I wouldn't have sought an assessment and a diagnosis. So it was a difficult limbo space to be in. I would recommend that if you know that you're going to seek diagnosis and you might well get a diagnosis and then would like medication, that you are aware and shore yourself up for any wait period between that time, to expect a wait period and an emotional drop during that time. To summarize, the period between diagnosis and medication is very hard because you're already operating on low ebb, on a rocky foundation, and the waiting game is no fun at all. So I did a lot of research and found lots of alternative ways to support myself during that very difficult time. And in another video, I will talk to you in detail about the different supplements that I took, 1 or 2 of them making a monumental difference. One of them I'd never heard of before. And I'll also talk to you about different exercises, techniques that I use to help keep me stable, positive, and focused whilst I waited out that period of time. Just to finish off this video, I'd like to talk to you about why I decided to take medication, because lots of people have said to me, why take medication? You're great as you are, but you'll get rid of your sparkle, but your shine will go. But you've managed for this long, do you think it's good to have meds in your system? Those are said with love and kindness and worry and care, I know. I don't think they're necessarily very helpful, because people must do what they feel they must do, and I had never been faced with having to make that decision before, so I was nervous about deciding to try medication anyway, and I had given it a lot of thought. My family were very supportive about me needing to do what I needed to do. I had managed myself and my symptoms for a very long time, and for a really long time I didn't know that anybody else was dealing with life any differently. Constant conversations in my head, running dialogue up here all the time, idea, one after another, forgetting things, losing keys, having systems so I didn't lose things, reminders, post-it notes, alarms on my phone. When I'm all guns blazing, all ducks in a row, and I'm able to focus, I am capable of achieving incredible things. I am very accomplished, work incredibly hard, and have lots to give the world, and I feel like that all the time. Over a year or 2 leading up to the continental divide in 2021, I began to feel like no matter how much I tried and used all my systems and accelerated my organisational systems, bought more apps or, project management things for my computer to help me remember and get things scheduled and done on time, The more I tried, the more effort I put in, it still wasn't making my outcomes any better, and I was becoming more forgetful, more stressed and anxious. I had never really felt stressed and anxious before, and I believe potentially it was just COVID and that period of lockdown that had made me feel stressed and anxious. But I don't think it was. I think it was exacerbated by that. But I think that it was all hormonal imbalance around the time of ADHD symptoms being more clearly visible due to COVID and my other coping mechanisms disappearing. I was aware my life was becoming more challenging and more difficult for me, and I wasn't able to be successful in the way that I was used to being. I wasn't really able to function emotionally in the way I wanted to either. So I decided to try medication because basically, why not? If there was a way that I could help myself, if there was something I could try that might help me be more productive, less stressed, less anxious, achieve more, organize myself better, be a little bit more on time, I was going to absolutely try it. But most of all, and this is quite niche, my sound sensitivity issues were becoming unmanageable off the scale. I was wearing earplugs on the bus, in the street, on a train, everywhere, because the noise of the world was overwhelming to a monumental degree. I'd walk into rooms or a pub or a bar or a classroom or my own house, and I'd hear everything loudly all at once. The buzzing of the fridge, the buzzing of the television, someone tapping their foot at the back of a bus, every conversation in a restaurant that was crowded, someone squeaking on their chair as they rock back and forth, knives and forks touching each other, people masticating as they ate all around me at all the same level, and then could never focus on what was being said by the person right in front of me. So I thought if the medication could help that piece of my brain, then it would be worth side effects. Spoiler alert, it's one of the things it has helped the most. The medication has turned down the dial on my sound sensitivity by about 70%, which has been life-changing for me. There are other issues with it, of course, but we'll get to those in another video. So to summarise, I decided to try medication because it's my body, my choice. I thought that it was going to be the right thing for me to do, even if it was only for a year or so, to see the difference it made. Also, once you get diagnosed, if you get diagnosed, be prepared for a wait between that and getting your hands on some medication or being able to speak to someone about that. Maybe they've changed the system a little in the last 12 months, but I found that very distressing. Thirdly, there are other supplements and things that you can get that helps you through that period, or that you can take consistently onwards so you don't have to take medication. They might be enough for you, and I'll talk about those in another video too. Okay, thanks for now. If you've enjoyed these videos, please do click the subscribe button or send this on to somebody. Look out for the next video in this series about my ADHD journey down below. We'll be dealing with titration, the mental health nurse, dealing with the chemists and the pharmacies, the costs, and also different supplements and remedies that I tried to help me support myself until I got my hands on some medication. Thanks for now. Bye.